Jungkook could be a little too honest sometimes, but it was okay. He could let it pass. He could let whatever he would say pass, like when he said he liked how Seokjin smelled, or when he asked if he could hug him. Seokjin sometimes thought if he was just kidding, but the want in his eyes said otherwise. He let Jungkook do as he pleased because he was just so adorable, although his brother was there, watching them with a frown. His brother was fuming mad and it pleased him in a playful way. So he kept on visiting them for the next few days. Taehyung knew it was all a game to Seokjin. He just wanted to annoy him, so he tried to keep calm. He tried to be understanding. He was getting mad and he would tell Jungkook about it sometimes. He tried to stop him from getting too close to his younger brother, but Jungkook was just too stubborn. Seokjin frequently visited Jungkook and they got closer. They often talked about Taehyung and their baby, but Taehyung didn't know that. It turned out Jungkook was just craving Seokjin's attention because of his hormone during pregnancy. He liked everything about Seokjin, his smell, his face, his presence, but only because he was pregnant. Taehyung didn't know that too, which meant he didn't completely understand why Jungkook was suddenly so attached to his brother. For the past few days, Jungkook forgot Taehyung. He only wanted Seokjin. This fact confused Taehyung. It angered him. He was the husband, but why did it feel like Seokjin replaced him? Jungkook didn't even listen to him when he told him to stay away from Seokjin. It irritated him more than anything. He started busying himself again at work. Jungkook didn't even care anymore about him, so what was the point of staying home with him and taking care of him if someone else was already that? No, he was not throwing their times together. He was not surrendering Jungkook to his younger brother because he knew Jungkook was his. He just wanted Jungkook to miss him, to crave him again. But then one night, after a very exhausting day at work, Taehyung went home expecting a tight hug and warm dinner from his husband, but what he found was Jungkook and Seokjin cuddled on the couch while the television was still flashing in front of them. His head almost from anger. All he saw was red and evil. This was too much. That couch was theirs. Cuddling while watching TV was their pastime. Jungkook was his. Did Seokjin really take his place? He was so angry, but he didn't want to hurt any of the two, especially his husband, so he walked out. He was the husband, but he was the one who left their house. He left his husband. Another guy. He is to forget. He wanted to forget. But how? Oh yeah, drink it out. It has been days. Jungkook noticed how Taehyung changed it back to being cold to him, and he didn't understand why. Seokjin stopped visiting him for a while since he has some things to do, and he was sad, but seeing that Taehyung stopped caring for him too made him glad. You see, Seokjin made his day entertaining, but Taehyung completed it. He always waited for him to come home and would even fall asleep while waiting, but he didn't show up. He figured Taehyung must be sleeping in his office at the company, but he was still worried. Was he eating his dinner? Was he sleeping comfortably? Was he even sleeping? He must be very busy for him not to go home for days. Jungkook missed him. That night, Taehyung came home. He was happy to hear his car honking for the maids to open the gate, but what he saw shocked him. Taehyung was drunk. He drove home drunk. Jungkook quickly walked to him and helped him to his room, changed his clothes, and then wiped his body with warm water. The older was a bit could still understand him because he obeyed everything he said. He was very quiet for someone who was drunk too. Jungkook was confused. Why did Taehyung drink? Did Taehyung have a problem that Jungkook didn't know of? Was work stressing him too much? The next morning, Jungkook woke up without Taehyung again. He sighed in disappointment. He thought he would stay and that Jungkook could help him with his hangover, but the older was gone even before he woke up. So he decided he would just go to his company with a packed breakfast and medicine. The moment he arrived at the building, he visited his old workmates first. He missed them as well. They were all surprised to see him pregnant, except his friends, but they were all happy for him. Even his former boss, Yoongi, was happy to see him. He was a good employee after all. When he arrived at his husband's office, Taehyung's secretary welcomed him. They were close as well since he always bugged her about making Taehyung's morning coffee before. The secretary called for Taehyung's attention, saying his husband was there to visit him. He told her to let Jungkook inside in a hushed tone. When Jungkook entered Taehyung's room, he saw the older sitting on a swivel chair with his hands massaging his temple. Jungkook sighed, walking towards him and putting the bag he was carrying down on the table. He walked behind Taehyung and started massaging his head instead, making the older relax for a minute. "What are you doing here?" Taehyung asked, almost sounding like he didn't want to see him, but he let it pass. "I brought you breakfast and medicine for your hangover. Why did you leave so early when your head hurts?" "You could have stayed a little longer at home," he replied. He felt Taehyung's eyebrow raise, but he didn't say anything. "I brought coffee," he said, handing him the coffee before going back to massaging his head. He still disliked the smell of coffee, but he just had to do it for Taehyung. He missed his husband so much and he wanted to do something for him. After all, the older did everything for him for the past months. Taehyung was hesitant, but he drank the coffee. He missed the taste. It's been a long time since he last tasted it, and he was kinda glad to have Jungkook do it for him. He was kinda glad Jungkook visited him, must have missed him. It was all he wanted. Taehyung was new to this kind of relationship. He was new to these feelings, thus he didn't have any idea how to handle them. He didn't know what to do with his jealousy. He could use some help, but he wouldn't let him ask for someone's help. He would not ask Namjoon what to do when he was punching his younger brother in the face, or he wouldn't do that. So he was glad that Jungkook finally noticed his absence, because he didn't know what to do if he didn't. It happened so fast. He was mad, but a simple act of affection from Jungkook was enough to ease his anger, even without an apology. For a while, they went back to their old relationship. Back to being sweet, back to being the lovely couple. But really, Seokjin must be very eager to piss him off. On the third day, he came back. Jungkook was too occupied again. Though this time, he didn't leave Taehyung alone. He didn't want the cold Taehyung to come back again. He figured out it must have been because he was jealous, so Jungkook tried to limit Seokjin, but he still wanted Seokjin. He still wanted to pinch his cheeks, hug him tightly, even bite him. Jungkook wanted to bite him. Seokjin had grown to truly like Jungkook, but only as a friend or as his brother-in-law. He had softened to him just like his older brother did. If he wanted to piss his brother off before, now he just wanted to see the both of them happy together. It was almost fine. They were almost okay. Taehyung could have begun feeling secure that Seokjin didn't have any intention of stealing Jungkook from him, but some situations were just complicated. Jungkook asked for Taehyung's permission to spend the day outside with Seokjin. Taehyung was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed after Jungkook's long whine. There was a time limit though. He has to go home before 6 p.m. and he has to take good care of himself. Taehyung entrusted their safety under Seokjin's care, so they had to be extra careful. Jungkook was glad to hear that he could go outside with Seokjin. It would get really boring inside the house, and sometimes, even when Seokjin was there, he just wanted to go out where he could see the green nature. But sadly, Taehyung couldn't go with him due to his busy work. But worry not, because Seokjin was there to the rescue. The two enjoyed their time together. Seokjin bought every food that Jungkook pointed at. Some people thought they were a couple, a cute couple, and Seokjin was the baby's father, but they always corrected them. They rested by a public garden, just watching the different colors of the flowers and the huge trees around them. They enjoyed their time together, to the point where they forgot the time. It was almost 8 p.m. already when they arrived home. Taehyung was waiting for them, sitting on the couch while raising an eyebrow at them. They didn't see him though. About to say something, Taehyung opened his mouth but gritted his teeth instead when he witnessed something that brought more heat to his burning anger. Jungkook and Seokjin hugged each other as a goodbye. It couldn't have been worse if Seokjin just didn't kiss Jungkook's cheek afterward, and Jungkook giggled happily. Jungkook didn't know it, but he was in for a Taehyung he would never want to meet. Another week of being avoided and ignored. Jungkook was beginning to let out smokes of anger from his ears and nose, but he was also confused. What did he do this time to upset Taehyung? As far as he could remember, they were on good terms. Even in better terms, if that was possible. He would give him 100% of his attention if he could, but after his friendly date with Seokjin, Taehyung started ignoring him again. He didn't even glance at him, and when he did, there was a scary fire that sat in his eyes. He was mad at him again, but now, he couldn't guess the reason. Jungkook tried wooing his husband, acting extra sweeter to him, trying to get his attention. He did his best, but Taehyung remained hard and stern. This kept on going until Jungkook couldn't think of anything to work and Taehyung's anger anymore. His lack of response was also starting to get on his nerves. To not give himself stress because that was not good for him and the baby, he found himself giving up on trying to woo his husband. And that was his first mistake. The second mistake he made fueled Taehyung's burning anger, for Jungkook started showering his attention back. They were both in the wrong, but they both left that truth behind their backs. Taehyung had such a big ego to ignore Jungkook's efforts while Jungkook was just being himself, that he couldn't analyze Taehyung's obvious reasons. On Jungkook's due month, everybody became even more protective of him. The maids were fully eyeing his every movement, and Taehyung's parents visited more often, but Taehyung himself seemed to forget the danger of being careless with Jungkook. Every night was like a bad dream to the younger. After either his mother-in-law or Seokjin's visit, Taehyung would come back home from work not to kiss him hello but to slump down the couch and ask the maids for a couple of bottled beers. This became a bad habit. Taehyung was like someone Jungkook didn't know. He hated how the stinky smell crawled up to his nose and made him dizzy and want to throw up, but he hated it more because Taehyung did this every night without any care about his pregnant husband.